Thank you for joining me for another episode of Think Your Way to an Epic Life. My next guest, Dr. Michelle Maidenberg, is really a fascinating lady. She's written a book called Ace Your Life, and she goes into some details on that, and she's got some really practical tips for us to improve our lives and to continue to grow. I hope you enjoy as much as I did. So, thank you, Dr. Michelle, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure. I've been looking forward to this. I've enjoyed reading your book so much. So, instead of starting out where you are right now, can you back up and tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's been a journey. So, like most people, I had a little bit of adversity in my childhood, to say it mildly, I think. My parents divorced when I was 3. I went to 5 different elementary schools. I could go on and on. There was some, family substance use, abuse, and on and on. So I was kind of naturally, I think, born as a healer. I always took on that role. I was the oldest child in my family. I took on that role with friends, but didn't know where that was going to lead me, but really understood that I wanted to work with people. I love people. And I was always fast. I always felt, people kind of referred to me as an old soul. I felt that way. I felt like my peers that I was always, and I was also because of my life experience, I was pseudo mature. So I always, and I always saw it, which is incredible to me till this day. And actually, in my book, I dedicated my book to my women warriors in my life. I always sought mentors and women, who I felt nurtured me and protected me and loved me and saw my essence and my worth and my goodness. So I always had that in my life, and I was resourceful. I have to say, like I'm like amazed at how resourceful I was. And that's just innate. I think I was just born out of the womb that way. I didn't have anyone in my family really who advised me or supported me through my like professional, I guess, endeavors. So I sought that out. And when I was in college, I took my student loan money and I paid for my own therapy. Yeah, I knew that I did not want a repeat of the life that I had. I just knew innately. And I remember like being a little child, literally. I was like so little. And I remember hugging my teddy bear at night and saying, like, this isn't like this too shall pass. And this is not the life that I'm confined to, which is amazing to me. I remember it so clearly that I used to actually say that to myself. Um, so I obviously pursued my professional endeavors, and worked with people and learned so much from my own therapy personally about myself, about others, about what I wanted in life. But I always wanted to be of service to others. That's always been a dream of mine, since I was little, and wanted to find ways to help people. And I see with the patients that I work with, I see, where they're at and where they're going and eventually their transformation. And I could tell you story after story of like life changing transformations that happen that sometimes I'm like, I'm shocked. And what's so lovely also about having a practice is I have some, individuals that I've seen from high school and now they're like young adults, and some who are kind of in adulthood. So, and they don't see me necessarily consecutively through the years, but just this week I had 2 or 3 people return back to me after years of not seeing them. And it's just so lovely because they trust me and they recognize the change that they've made and the rapport and the connection that they have with me and trust me enough, to expect that I will be helpful for them and with them. And that's just such a gift. I feel literally I'm one of those people that like feels so joyful to come to work every day. And the other things that I do, which, really I think round out my life in such a wonderful, I think, gratifying way is I teach also. I teach a course. It's called Integrating Mindfulness into Clinical Practice at NYU and their graduate program. So I'm teaching practitioners how to use these skills in their own practice with clients. So it's almost like, yeah, it's
Thank
just,
you.
it's constantly like carrying forward, and I really, I just, and again, when I go to class, I just started the semester. Gosh, I am like, it's like I took a drug. It's a natural high. It moves me. And I see these students so eager, and I just, oh, there's nothing better than that feeling, I have to tell you.
It
And
is
again,
the best.
yeah, I publish guided meditations every week on Thursdays with my YouTube channel. I write, Psychology Today blogs. Last night, I wrote a blog because Valentine's Day is coming up soon. And I don't know when this will be published, but I wrote a blog on love, the truth about love, what love is and what it isn't. And I thought about even just my journey, interpersonally and in terms of my intimacy. And that's been really also like I'm continuing to grow and change and evolve. And there's never an ending to that. I've learned so much about myself, especially in the past couple of years. Wow. It's led me to a lot of changes and some very painful ones, some very painful ones. So, all that I've learned and all of my life experience, I developed this ACE method that I feel like it's a roadmap. And I use it in my own life and I teach it to others. And I know that it helps because I see with myself and I see with others. And I want it to get out to as many people as possible so it could be helpful.
And we're going to do our best to get it out to as many people as possible. We'll talk about your book and the ACE method, like the acceptance, compassion, and empowerment. We're going to dig into all that stuff. However, I want to unpack a little bit about all the stuff that you just said. You were a small child hugging your teddy bear, and you said, "This too shall pass,"
Yes.
which which is like crazy. Yet you knew all along. You knew that you were here to serve and you were here to help. How much did that help you get through those dark times as a child?
That's also a great question. One of the things that I believed because I've been through so much adversity is that I could get through anything. Yeah. And, I see how it carries over. I have 4 children from ages 16 to 24, 3 boys and a girl. And I see how it really also impacts my parenting, which I'm very grateful for, I have to tell you, because I am not afraid of adversity and I am not afraid of negative emotions and I am not afraid of challenge and risks. And I really do everything. I feel like my job as a parent is to help build my children's coping skills. And I take that very seriously because I see how much it's helped me, right? When I got through challenge and adversity and I had self-efficacy and I believed that what I put effort into, that it's going to amount to something. And I do believe this. I believe in my heart at the gut level that anything that comes my way, I could manage and I could persevere. Not that I'm not going to, I'll give you like a silly example that happened yesterday. The past few days, actually. The heat and the hot water in my house was broken. Okay. Now I live in New York. It's really cold here. Okay. I was literally working out in fleece. It was so uncomfortable. Okay. And then the other day, this was actually the day before yesterday, I took a shower after I worked out. I was crying. I was sobbing because I never felt so cold in my life. It was like in my bones and I just couldn't, I was so dysregulated. I was sobbing. I was like putting an arm in. I was like, it was so every move I made in my house was like torture. It felt like torture. And I literally had to take incremental moments to be like, okay, Michelle, you're okay. You're going to get through this. It's temporary. Like, what could you actually get out of this? It's positive. And like, right. And I said, you know what? This is strength building. Like, how many times do we have gratitude for our hot water? Or how many times do we have gratitude, right? That we could work out at home or whatever the case is. Okay, let's take this as a moment to really lean into that. I could have the pain and I could also have the gratitude at the same time. And I did. I took those moments to lean into that. And I was so appreciative of it. Because sometimes we need a wake up call.
We need a wake up call probably way more often than we think we do. We
Yes.
do. It's no matter how much work you do on yourself, yeah, that ego side of your mind comes back and tries and mess with
Yes.
you.
And it's, I'm a victim. Why me? Why doesn't other people have this? Why do I have it? It just unravels into this whole spiral, right? And we have like thoughts about the thoughts and feelings about the feelings and thoughts about the feelings and feelings about the thoughts. And it just like, woo, before you know it.
Hmm.
It just gets out of control. So I had to like really make an effort to ground myself, make an effort to be in my body, make an effort to really be, you know, um, present in the present moment with my pain, with my frustration, with my disappointment, with my everything all at the same time. And again, there was a propensity for me to blame. Why did this happen? And what caused this to happen? And why did it get this far? And what could have happened instead? Forget it. I mean, I was like all over the place, literally. What was going on in my mind? Gosh, I was laughing. I was like, wow. Like, seriously, take a chill, lady.
So how do you do that? How do you get yourself? There's always Mel Robbins' 5 second rule. What other techniques do you have when you realize, oh my gosh, that left brain is messing with me right now? How do you stop it?
It's not about stopping it. So that's a misnomer, yeah, about stopping it. So talking about Mel Robbins, I'm reading her book now called Let Them.
Me too.
It's the new book. It's really, really great. I love it. I have to say, I'm enjoying it a lot. Somebody actually got a hold of me because they were doing some kind of like press or something on the book, but they wanted to know kind of an opinion against it, like what's missing and all of that. And I thought that was very interesting. So I've been thinking about that too. Um, so I think we need to understand the underpinnings of why our mind does that. I think that's where it becomes really rich because then we don't berate ourselves, then we don't go through this spiral, right, of kind of negative core beliefs and on and on and on, which leads us to those kind of self-deprecating places. So it's not about stopping, because when you said, how do you stop it? There's an expectation there and an assumption, right? What's the expectation assumption? That we could stop our minds. That's dangerous. That's a very dangerous assumption. And that leads us to berate ourselves. Why can't I stop it? What's wrong with me? I shouldn't feel this way. And then what ends up happening is our thoughts and feelings actually intensify. And that's how we sometimes overthink. And that's how sometimes we perseverate over thoughts because we think we shouldn't have them. So we're resisting them and we're denying them and we're disconnecting from them. And when we do that, what we resist persists. It actually intensifies it. It makes it worse. We don't realize that. So it's not, like I said, it's not about not having them. It's about having them and expansion, curiosity, openness, flexibility. Oh, I love those words, right? Because it's all about like this. Like, how do we open ourselves up to to things, right? Besides just how our mind, the trajectory of our mind, that's so fixed and rigid, right? How do we expand that? So when we have an opportunity to do that, that's where the power is. And by the way, I appreciate my mind, right? So when my mind was doing all those things and racing and victim and blaming and I was like, thank you for trying to protect me. I so appreciate it. Thank you for reminding me, right, how lovely and nurturing and kind you are, right? Because you want me to blame everybody else, for this so that I can't feel the feelings that I'm having right now, which is pretty frustrating. Because all it is a distraction. It's a distraction. If I'm blaming people and if I'm the victim, I don't have to be with how miserable this is for me right now. Well, guess what? It is miserable. And you know what? If I actually lean into how miserable it is, I could have some self compassion and self love. And I could say to myself, this really sucks. This is really uncomfortable. And yes, anybody who would be standing in the shower when it's like below zero would feel the same way I do. And like, yeah, this really is hard. This is really hard. That's where you could be nurturing to yourself, because we don't need that from anybody else. Like, anybody could say, Michelle, that was really hard. Oh, I feel so bad for you. Like, I'm sorry that happened to you. Okay. They didn't have to experience it. They don't even know how it felt. And actually, I think I was talking to my son about it, he's in California, like in sunshine, right? Like whatever. Mountain ranges. He like looks out his window and sees mountain ranges. I'm like, yeah, please. So he's trying to tell me how taking cold showers, people take these ice baths and polar bearing, and he's telling how great it is for your body. I'm like, you know what? Thank you, but like that's not how I'm feeling right now. I'm like, I'm not opting for polar bearing right now. Sorry. I personally like very hot showers.
Yeah, they chose that. I would like to choose a hot shower. There's a little bit of a difference here.
I was just laughing. So I'm like, you could tell me how wonderful it is, but like that's not how I feel.
Yeah, yeah, it's fun. Okay, so no matter how enlightened you become, no matter how conscious you become, we're in this world and things are still going to be thrown at us.
Oh, indefinitely. Yeah.
So do you feel like you can ever arrive where you don't need to grow anymore?
Oh no. What's that? Like, what does that even mean?
Right.
If we're not growing, we're not living. If we decided that we've grown enough, we're not living. I'm sorry. That's not living life. That's not living life to the fullest. It isn't. We never arrive. Do we have moments of arrival? Yes. Yes. When I act, this happened to me yesterday too. I got a text from somebody, right, about a plan that was being made. And right when I read it, I was like triggered. And I had all these assumptions about what they were saying, what they meant by it, right? And my inclination was to come, because I know how to defend myself, right? So my inclination, that's like one of my defense mechanisms, was to write something, and it was going to be a little aggressive, passive aggressive, maybe, and unkind. But I was going to do it subtly, right? In hoping to get the results that I wanted to. And I caught myself. I'm like, no, I'm not aligning with my values. That's not who I am. And I'm acting from my triggered self. So I stopped and I said, I'm not responding for at least an hour so I could think about this. And then I reread the text and I was amazed because I misconstrued what the person said. And there were nuances within the text that were actually very kind and considerate that I totally missed. And I also recognize that person doesn't have the same attachment issues that I have. So they wouldn't even think about addressing it in the way that I thought they should, right? There you go. But the point that I'm making there is that's a moment of arrival. I felt so proud of myself because I did something different. My neural pathways have redefined, have shifted because of the work that I'm doing. So those are moments of arrival when I'm leaning into my values rather than my thoughts and feelings. That's moments of arrival. But arriving, I don't know what that is. Yeah, no, no.
Yeah, yeah, I could not agree with you more. It's you learn and you learn and you learn, and then you find out, oh my gosh, I know like nothing compared to what is out there to learn, and it's very exciting. It's so much
Uh,
fun, especially the advances in the human brain. Af-
oh, yeah.
Not that the advances, I mean the advances in the technology, so we know what is happening with the human brain is mind-boggling over the past 10 years. Like,
Yeah.
what would you say is one of the things that has excited you the most that has been learned?
Yeah. So I'm teaching this class, and I have one of the classes, because it's a 15-week course, is neurobiology. And I teach them because we have actual evidence to support that we can actually grow new neural pathways in our brain, and we could increase the gray matter in our brain. Do you know how like mind blowing that is? There is no other way for that to happen except if you practice mindfulness. There's just no other way to construct that. And that is absolutely incredibly fascinating and important. So, yes, there are, like you said, there's MRIs and all these different advanced technologies that show pure evidence to support the idea that our brains, our neural pathways can change. But we have to make effort. It's not doesn't change on its own. That's the point.
It is wild. Okay, so can you please define mindfulness for our listeners who kind of think they know, but they're not really sure?
Yeah, and people think that that meditation and mindfulness is synonymous, and it's not. So meditation is a type of mindfulness. There's like thousands and thousands and thousands of ways of practicing mindfulness, and one way includes meditative practice. So there's all different ways to do that. We could do it on a daily basis, right? So even just like going outside and looking up at the sky and noticing the intricacies of what you see around you, right? And paying attention on purpose, non-judgmentally. John Kabat-Zinn, right? That's a mindfulness practice. And you could do it in your daily activities, when you're taking a shower, when you're brushing your teeth, whatever you're doing. If you just take a moment and feel into your body and feel into being in the present moment, right? And feeling, let's say, the mouthwash swishing against your teeth or whatever the case is, that is a mindfulness moment. Right? We could do that throughout our days. Sometimes I'll be playing with my dog, right? And I'll just kind of really be present with her, right? I'll throw the bone and she catches it and goes back. And I just watch, right? I watch her steps and I watch the gleefulness and I watch the engagement and I feel it. Like I actually feel it on a visceral level. Those are all incredible mindfulness activities. you know Self-compassion exercises, that happens all the time. I did a TED talk a couple of years ago. It's called Circumventing Emotional Avoidance. There's all we try to circumvent, again, our negative emotions because they're painful. So it's all of these activities to really connect with yourself. And even within meditative practice, there's thousands of ways of doing meditative practice too. So it is endless. Like I said, I teach a 15-week course on this. So could you imagine how much information there is on this? It's mind blowing. And I do experiential exercises every week with my students. I did this exercise last week, which I'll tell you, and I encourage you to do it. It's so wonderful. So I listened to this. There's a song by Rachel Patton. It's called Better Place. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's such a beautiful song. I just like when I listen to it, it literally it seeps into my bones. It's so powerful. So what I do is I have them kind of close their eyes, and I have them listen to the song with their eyes closed. And, again, whatever comes up, but I have them pay attention to what's going on in their bodies, what's going on in their minds, what's going on, again, their thoughts, their feelings. Then it has a beautiful, you have to see it to know what I'm talking about, but it has a beautiful video that goes along with it. So then I have them listen to the music with the video. And then they compare what the experience was like listening to the music alone without the visual, and then what it's like. Because again, I'm using our senses in order, right, to hone in on the mindfulness. And again, I do so many different kinds of exercise. Every week I do at least one or two exercises with my students. And some of them are very challenging, I have to tell you. They really are. So, and then they talk about it. And what's also so beautiful about it is they all have different experiences based on who they are, right? Some of them are distracted by the video, some of them are not. And just in terms of their feedback, it's incredible. And also listening to the lyrics of the music, what that evokes, and each person is different, right? I do this exercise. Hopefully students are not listening to this because everything's a surprise, but I have them put their knees, like they partner up. So glad we're past COVID, but they partner. Well, not really, but we partner up and they sit knee to knee, and it's called Eyes On, and they literally look in each other's eyes for 5 minutes straight.
Whoo!
Yeah, it's really intense. I had to do it in my training for 15 minutes straight. Yeah, it was torture. It really was. It was really hard. really challenging, but it is amazing to see what your mind does as you're sitting there. It is so incredible. So that's just an example, but there's so many examples that I use in my class. So just to give you a little inkling of how much, I mean, how much we could do, like just on a daily basis, to kind of be more in our bodies and our minds, and be more present with our in our lives.
Are you at all into breath work?
I do breath. Oh yes, absolutely, absolutely. So there's all different kinds of breathing exercises. The reason why breath work is so helpful is because it's very grounding. It's very grounding. It's also a resource because we have it in our bodies. So we could always, again, default to it. It's here. It's right. So if so Andrew Weil has this type of breath where he does a 4-7-8. I don't know if you heard of it, but it's very helpful for sleep. It's known for sleep. But basically, you breathe in for 4, you hold for 7, and breathe out for 8, very slowly. But what happens is there is a physiological fundamental change when you're doing breath work. And again, you could try that out, and I do it with my students, right? Because what ends up happening is it lowers our heart rate. And we automatically, okay, when we lower our heart rate, it automatically expands our lungs. And there is an automatic physiological relaxation that happens in our bodies. It just happens automatically. We can't even, right? I was teaching a class, actually, this happened a couple of years ago. And this student was in the back of the room and she had her laptop plugged into the outlet. And it was the end of class. Most people already kind of left, and she unplugged and she got a little, shock, and she became so dysregulated. And I went up to her. She got like just scared. So, and I saw it happen. So I went right up to her. I said, look in my eyes, make sure that you're looking in my eyes. And I did breath work with her. And in seconds, she was re-regulated. And she looked at me. She goes, how'd you do that? Like as if like I'm a magician or something. It was very cute. So I said, no, this is a physiological thing that happens when we do our breath work. And oh, she was like amazed by it. And it does, it works on the spot. It is very helpful, especially like in crisis or dysregulation in the moment.
Oh, in the moment, yeah. Most people in the moment will hold their breath. When you're scared, when you're upset, when you're
Ah,
whatever, you're just like, you're not breathing at all, which gives your brain no resources to work with. It's just crazy. So, um, you also have a nonprofit, Through My Eyes. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
yeah. It's a passion of mine, I have to tell you, and it's been so meaningful and incredible. So over the course of it's over 10 years, I started this nonprofit. I had a friend who is 36 years old. I used to go to the gym with her, and she had her second bout of breast cancer, and she had a 9-year-old daughter. And again, at that point, it was inevitable that she was going to die. And she used to come to the gym even to her last day. She was so inspiring. She said to me one day, I said to her, how do you do this? Like, how do you like keep the spirit up? And she said to me, I decided I could either die being miserable and bitter and angry, or I could die feeling gratitude. And I decided that's how I'm going to end. My life is going to end. And I was like, wow. And she consulted with me because she wanted to leave a video for her daughter about her life lessons that her daughter could have forever. So I got to thinking and I said, like, does this exist? And so I looked into it. The hospital that she was going to, they had something, but again, you had to pay for it. It had to be done at the hospital. There was no guidance at all for it. And so she was consulting with me on what questions she should answer. So again, then I developed this nonprofit, and basically it offers, free clinically guided videotaping for chronically medically ill individuals who want to leave a video legacy for their children and loved ones. So it's offered for free. It's offered in any setting you want it to be. Um, it's guided by a licensed mental health professional, which is really important. And then the last thing is I came up with a series of over 200 questions that covers the spectrum of a person's life, and they get to choose what they want to respond to. So it's customized for every person. which is really incredible because people have, are all different circumstances. I have had people who say to me, I do not want to discuss my illness. You know, do not, right? I had somebody who said to me, don't mention the word mother. My mother left our house. She was an alcoholic. She left the house when I was very young. Do not mention my mother. Okay. Whatever the case is, it was, whatever people's preferences are. So I've done over 300 videotapes. And unfortunately, at this point, it was only, offered locally. And the structure of the nonprofit, unfortunately, is structured so that it basically dies with me. And I don't want it to be structured. I want a business model where it is enduring forever and ever because it is so meaningful and helpful. And the families that I've videotaped and the individuals, I can't even tell you the level of gratitude. They say to me, I never would have done this. They say to me, I don't have any record of my voice and my feelings and my lessons to carry over for the rest of my life. This is going to be a legacy. Um, so I want so much to be able to continue this work, and I want to offer it on a larger scale nationally, across the country to anybody, regardless of socioeconomic status, race, religion, etc. Every person is entitled to this. Every person needs to be able to use this resource if they want to. So I am, yeah, I'm looking for people who want to be involved. I'm happy to partner up. I'm ha- there's no ego involved in this. Literally, I just want to see it succeed.
That's beautiful. And it is a beautiful thing. And I have thought about that several times as I've been recording these podcasts, thinking, this is something that one of these days, both of us are not going to no longer going to be here, and our families will have this to be able to go back and see. And it's not what you're doing, but it's like a little piece of what you're doing. And I think what you're doing is absolutely beautiful. And guys, if there's anybody that you know of that you think would this would resonate with their heart, maybe because they had a video left for them and they know how powerful it is, please send them this, and maybe the two of you can hook up, and you never know where this could go.
Yeah. So if anybody's interested or anybody, like, I think everybody could really, it could resonate with anybody because we all know people, unfortunately, who prematurely died because of illness or other reasons. So yeah, I'm open.
Okay. That sounds beautiful. Okay, so now let's get to your book, Ace Your Life. And ACE stands for, A is for acceptance. And give us a little background on the three things that we need in our lives.
Yeah. So it's acceptance, compassion, and empowerment. When I thought about this model and how I want to convey it to the world, I thought about these three concepts. And there are barriers. There are barriers, that get in the way of our self acceptance, barriers that get in the way of our self compassion and empowerment. And when I talk about empowerment, I'm talking about taking action on behalf of your values, leaning into it. And like I said, not acting from our thoughts and feelings, but rather from our values. And sometimes that means being disappointed. Sometimes that means, other people may have negative feelings about our actions. It means everything. So what I do, the way that I construct this is I have the first chapters on our thoughts and how our thoughts again develop our cognition, because it's really important to understand that in order to understand why we behave the way we do and why we have these barriers to begin with. Then I talk about values. It's a whole chapter on values, how to construct your values, what that means, how to define that for yourself. And then I take it in three different parts: the acceptance, compassion, empowerment. The first chapter talks about the barriers that get in the way of that. And by the way, there are so many barriers just because of society, our environment, and so many other issues. And then the second chapter is how to cultivate these skills and tools. And I give very practical examples and exercises. And then I end off each chapter with a guided meditation, to integrate the information. And it has a QR code. So that's kind of my signature. I love, ending it off because it's kind of coming full circle, right? We could kind of get in the present moment and really feel it at the gut level because we really want to do that. So that's the gist of it. We only have one very short life to live, very short. And we don't have time to waste. We don't have time to waste. This is a roadmap. This is how we live, breathe, walk, talk, and everything else. And when you really have awareness of that and you've cultivated that for yourself, your life changes. And I see how it has for me. Again, not perfect because we're never perfect, we're human. But I really have moments where I worked with a young woman yesterday and she was telling me, she said, I'm always beating myself up. I can't ever feel positive about myself. It's always what I'm not doing than what I'm doing. It's always about, and we were talking about that. Um, she never learned. And by the way, we don't learn. We don't learn skills and tools for self-acceptance and self-compassion and empowerment. We don't. We're told to do, but we're not told what gets in the way of that, or we're not told how to do it, or what characteristics we need in order to do it, that leads us down that path. There's no transcript. There's no way to subscribe to that because there's no awareness. And even, listen, I've fought tooth and nail and tried to advocate for social emotional learning in schools and mindfulness practice. It falls to deaf ears. Like, we're teaching kids how to learn, right, and be academic superstars, but we're not teaching them the basic skills to have meaningful lives. What?
Well, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but I think it's only like 5% of people that meditate regularly.
It's a small percentage. Yeah.
It's tiny. It might even be less than that. It's tiny. And so if you don't understand it, then you don't you don't entertain it as a thought. And and my goodness, guys, I get it. I know it seems like and it's just so ridiculous and all that. That's not what it is. It's not at all. It's being quiet. It's spending time with yourself and understanding who you are at the deepest level. And it has absolutely revolutionized my life, and I cannot say enough about it. And the fact that you have a place where I can go and listen to your meditations is very exciting to me. I'm almost finished with your book, but I didn't know that I heard you say that, in the book, but I thought I need to read the book before I do this and then I'll go do the meditations. That is so exciting. Guided meditations is a great way to start your meditation practice because I think a lot of people, they're just like, oh, these thoughts keep coming. Well, they still come for us too. It's just, you just have to think of it like a bird that just flew on by and let it go on by.
Well, and it helps to label it also, like thinking, planning, judging. Yeah, that's really helpful because it again compartmentalizes it so that you're not like, right, kind of with the guided meditations aren't for everybody. So I do want to say that, right? Some people find themselves that they're restless, preoccupied, whatever the case is. Find what works for you. There's thousands and thousands of different types of meditation. I do meditation on a candle. I do walking meditation. I do so many different types of meditation. When people say, I don't know how to do this or I'm not good at it, I'm like, if you're not good at it, that means you really need to be doing it. Yeah. And that means you need to, just like working out. I don't work out because I don't like to do it, or I can't find something that I like. Sorry. There's like 1,000 ways to work out. Find what works for you. And you don't have to sit on a cushion for 30 minutes, right? I say this in my TED talk. But even if you sit for 5 minutes, that's okay. If that's all that you could muster, that is beautiful and wonderful. That's terrific. There's a wonderful app. It's free. It's called Insight Timer. I really love it because it has thousands and thousands of guided meditations, and you could actually filter it by time. You could filter it by topic. You could filter it. There's so many filters, which really help because you could customize it, for yourself, what you want out of it. Some people like to meditate to sound, instrumentals, nature sounds, whatever works. There's no judgment, no judgment. Find what works for you. That's why, in my class, I'm giving them all different kinds of mediums so that they could find what works for them, right? Because they need to have a lot of tools in the toolbox.
Yeah, the more tools you have, the better. So, Dr. Maidenberg, thank you so much. And I do have a couple of questions. First one is there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have?
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so.
Good, I
You
nailed
did a
it.
wonderful job.
Thank you. Thank you. Second question is what books, what audio, videos, whatever, what do you recommend for our listeners? Of course, your book and your stuff, but is there a book that has made a big difference to you?
Gosh, I've read so many that made such a difference to me. I love like Christian Neff's, work on self-compassion. I love Sharon Salzberg's work on loving kindness. I love Jack Kornfield's work. John Kabat-Zinn, Pema Chodron is like my personal favorite. There's so many. There's so many. Again, there's also newer people like Gabby Bernstein, like Mel Robbins. Has I'm like I said, I'm Mel reading Let Them, and I'm really appreciating it a lot. There's so many. Again, you have to find who you resonate with, right? You have to find who you resonate with. That's going to lead you to your path.
Perfect. Perfect. And there's someone for everyone. And my final question, because you are on Think Your Way to an Epic Life, what tips do you have for our folks to help them think their way to their own epic life?
I really Everything's central around our core values. Yeah. Again, when I say that word, people are like, oh, some people are like, oh, I know what my values are, right? And then some people are like, oh, I don't even know what that is. So I get that, that I'm losing it, like I'm using it loosely and it's like has this big meaning, but it is hard for me to explain just kind of us sitting here. Um, so I would say again, if you can read especially chapter 2 of my book, because that really explains it. But I think even you could go online and there are some, quizzes and other things to how to extrapolate your core values. And it's really important to understand, again, are these values that we acquire? Are these values that we aspire? Are these values that are circumstantial? And also, how are we defining that value? And what action do we need to take in order to lean into it? So I do a values review every night before I go to sleep. And I think about what value did I lean into? Value did I lean out of? And what do I need to do tomorrow in order to be my best self? I don't beat myself up. Oh, I didn't really lean into my parenting values. I'm a horrible mom and what's wrong with me? No, I say, you know what? For whatever today, I didn't lean into my parenting values the way I intended to or wanted to. And tomorrow I'm going to make a concerted, intentional effort to do that because that's important to me. And I'm so happy that I'm disturbed by that because that leads me to connect to my value, that I want to feel like I am doing something very effortful and purposeful to lean into that because that is the essence of who I am and want to be. It's a lot more empowering, a lot more empowering.
Yeah. Well, thank you so, so much for all your wisdom. Guys, we've got links below that you can order her book, you can contact with her, you can go to her meditation. It's a YouTube site or what is that?
It's a YouTube channel. Yeah, it's Dr. Michelle Maidenberg. Yeah. Yes. And on my website, you could sign up to my newsletter. And I have so much on my website. I have like all my blogs, all my articles that I've written. I have my podcasts that I've done. I have everything's on there too. Yeah. And my website is my name,
Perfect.
MichelleMaidenberg.com.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much for being with us.